Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Paint with Sal. Today we're painting a dark, moody lake landscape. Also, it's a sunset, and that's what makes it dark and moody. The sunset itself is luminous, as you can see, but that makes the rest of it kind of dark. So it's a little bit different than what we usually do, and a little bit more difficult mixing the colors and all that. So I have a couple of videos about this. This one specifically is about the bushes, the brush, the flowers up here in the foreground. All right, let's learn something. Grab your coffee, your tea, and let's paint something fun. Okay guys, I just turned on the space heater because I'm in the garage at the moment and it's a bit cold, so hopefully the audio quality doesn't bother you too much. I promise it won't always be like that. Alright, so as you can see, we've done the blocking already. I did that in the time-lapse, so you won't see it done step by step, but what you want is the mid-tones. So just kind of find generally the colors that you want and put in the mid-tones, and then later we get our darks, and then after that we get our lights, our highlights. Okay, so you can see I just kind of put in the bushes generally where they are and the type of color they are, and since everything is kind of in shadows, there isn't a lot of color, so that's why these aren't too saturated. The next step is we're gonna get some texture on there, and while we're doing the texture, we're also doing the shadows. So we're getting something that's near a black, and we're going to put it everywhere. So take a look at the palette. I'll take my blue. I have an ultramarine blue here, and then I'll take some umber, which is basically a brown, and take almost 50-50 parts, both, and mix it together. And if you mix a 50-50 split, it should turn out to be kind of a black. If you want it to be warmer, use more umber. If you want it to be cooler, use more blue. Now what you want to do is you want to grab a texture brush, like a hog hair brush, like this. Something that's textured, thick, and bristly. And we're gonna dip it in here. And let's put the shadows in here. Shadows and texture. So everywhere here, just dab it on. See how we're already getting a texture that's going to help us out a lot when it comes to bushes, grasses, really anything that has a texture to it. So that you don't really have to go in there with a brush and put in texture. One little leaf, one blade of grass at a time. This gets it all started for you really quickly. Alright guys, and if you see any areas that are especially dark, they're going to want to do more, like the bottom of this bush here. So I'll just go in and I'll put another layer there so it'll really give it extra darkness there. See, the bottom of these bushes are totally blocking the light source, which is coming from the other side. This is the back of the bushes coming from the light and the sun, so they get very dark at the bottom. Now that we have the texture on there, we're gonna get some of these mid-tones back, some of these colors, and we're gonna start putting in some of these bushes and some of these grasses. So we'll start at the top well, more like the bottom of the painting, but the top of the bottom of the painting. So we'll get that, and we'll come forward, because grass is at the front, we'll cover some in the back. So you don't want to start here and go backwards, or else it's just not going to layer right. You want to layer it from the back forward. Okay. Okay, so let me know if you want me to go through my whole mixing process in these videos. I think that it just makes the videos take too long when I add all of this part. So just let me know. I'm not going to show you today the whole mixing part, because I'm not sure if people want to see it. So let me know in the comments if you do want to see it, and then maybe I'll start showing it more. But let's just mix some of the colors, which are going to be very muted and dark. So if you make a green like this, we're gonna have to darken it up. Okay, the way I want to start this in the beginning is by using a fan brush. Again, this is a bristly brush, thick bristles. We're gonna take the fan brush, take a look at the palette here, and just stick it in there, just a little bit. You don't need too much paint on it. Just kind of get it on the edges of this thing. So you're gonna lightly tap, but not all over. You want kind of these bunches of leaves that are coming out. Bunches that the light is bouncing off of, which isn't going to be everywhere. It's going to be wherever the bush is just coming out a little bit more where the light can see it. So just kind of pick and choose. If you have your reference photo, try to do it like that so that you can learn. If you don't have the reference photo, then just kind of tap around in spots that you think might be seen by the sun. But again, use it sparingly. You don't want it everywhere, or it won't look right. The bush will just look like it's a bright bush, which won't make sense with the light. It's all about the subtlety for this. So you can see it's very dark up here, because the light should all be on the other side of these bushes. We're seeing it from the shadow side. So keep it subtle, keep it dark. That's the way that this is gonna look more realistic. Okay, really quick, another thing is, you don't need the same type of texture everywhere. See how in bushes, it's a little more stipply effect, but if you see that they're more grass-like, they're longer, like in the case of a couple of these bushes, then you can still use the fan brush, still use the same colors and all that, but the technique slightly changes. That's when, like you see right here and right here, I will just kind of take the fan brush and just hint at the direction of the flow. Because if a bush looks like this, with just long sticks and brush coming out of it, you don't need it to be stippled. You need it to kind of start to behave like the actual shapes in the bush. Okay guys, now it's about that time. We're gonna get to the detail now, the best part. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna begin with the edges of these bushes. See how it's kind of furry or too sharp, because with the block in you just kind of put the color on quickly. But we need the little leaves and everything to be coming off of here a little bit. So we're gonna grab these colors again, and let's just go in with, I like to use like a script liner brush like this. Something very skinny. I use that for a lot of my detail. So let's get the color, and we're gonna go up real close. So take a look at the palette again. I'm gonna take this kind of bluer mix. And actually, I want it to be slightly darker since it's on the edge. We want kind of a silhouette. So some of this blue, a little bit of umber just so it isn't totally blue. Let's get up close here. And we're just gonna manually put some of those leaves in there. You want the edges to look right. That's going to really bring a lot of detail into it. So because they're grasses and bushes, you want some of the background to come through. You don't want it to just be a crisp line. So that's what we're doing right now. We're leaving space as well. Okay, make sure you don't use the same color all the way around. Just use the same color as it is for each bush. You don't want to use this one across the whole thing, because not all the bushes here are the same color. Okay, so we have the edges of the bushes pretty much done, but what should we have there besides leaves? We also have some twigs and branches coming through the bush, some that come out a bit more than the leaves do. So we're gonna get a near black again, but we're really gonna lighten it up a lot because these twigs are so skinny that they kind of get illuminated by the light around them, so they kind of have this orange hue to them as well. So let's put in all the twigs and branches everywhere, because also the twigs and branches are going to get covered by leaves and grass. So let's just do our whole layer of these twigs and branches. Okay, so we could keep adding little details forever, but we're doing kind of a quicker, easier, faster version of a painting like this with less of the details, but we're just hinting at them so that from afar it looks right, but you don't need every single twig and branch in there. And so now let's get to the thin grasses, the highlights, and we will be about done. So again, what I like to do is take this brush, a script liner or a rigger brush, very thin, and I like to flatten out both sides with the paint. So if you look at the palette really quick, let's just say here, I'll add a little white to this just so it stands out a bit. It's a highlight of one of the greens. And I take one side, hit that, then the other side, and hit that. So it kind of flattens out a brush that's usually just a point. But with that, you get a thin top where you can really get thin blades of grass and things. So I flattened it out, and now look at this. Very thin grasses. Yeah. So when you do grasses, you don't want them all to be going in the same direction. Make sure some of them are kind of curved, some go to the right, some go straight up, and also not the same size everywhere. Just make sure some of them are kind of short, and some you only hint at kind of a highlight at the top. And we'll do more of that with actual highlights. So these are kind of mid-tones in a way, and we'll just add a little bit of highlights to make them stand out at the end. So see, this one I wanted to do something a little different, so I'm just dabbing it on like we were with the other brush. But that's a bush that doesn't look so grassy as some of the other ones. So a brush like this is all about layering. So you'll see that, it's starting to look like something, but we do have more stages left. I'm kind of putting in the grass that's coming obviously off of the ground and all that, but it's kind of a background layer because a lot of things will go in front of all these grasses, like bigger leaves and things. This is not the end. Alright guys, now we're to the last part. We're doing all the highlights in the grass and the highlights on the bushes. There are going to be different techniques again depending on the bush. So right here there's a very rounded kind of furry looking bush. It's supposed to be. And it's also browns, which is much different than most of these bushes here. So I just mixed the brown. I used a little bit of magenta because it mirrors the light from above, the luminosity of that sunset there. So I'm going to take this, again, this texture brush, this this round bush here, which is a little bit behind those bushes there. Behind and to the side. So that there is one of the darks. Then I mixed a lighter version of that right here. So we're gonna dab this along the top. Not too hard, really light, so that you keep the texture on there. If you go too hard, too much paint will come off, and then it will just be as if you painted it on regularly. Okay. And then one more time, we're going to go to the lightest highlight here, which is also a mix of magenta and brown, but more white put in there. And we're just going to go just along the very top where there's kind of a highlight. Very top. Alright, so there's that kind of rounded bush. So that is how we do the textured bushes that don't have the long kind of branches or blades of grass, but most of these have the longer ones, so we're going to do the same technique we were doing, and I've probably talked ad nauseum about this. So let's just play a little music, speed it up a little bit, and let's get these grasses in. So these are mostly highlights, so we're going to go significantly lighter with some very light greens, some light browns, and then we'll put in the yellow flowers and we'll be done. Hey guys, I want to ask you a favor to please like this video. It really helps me out. Leave a comment below and make sure you watch this other video if you want to get better at painting. And I'll see you there.